The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, demoing with way too loud of a voice, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, Alex recaps his trip to BGG-Con as both Sean and Alex discuss recent plays. Then they'll review Fireball Island from Restoration Games. And finally, they'll take a look back at Sean and Raquel's review of Lisboa in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex, so I'm going to keep any of that kind of stuff and shenanigans to a minimum.
What?
Hey, Sean.
Are we doing this?
Yeah, we're doing this.
Okay.
We're in it. I'm just letting everyone know.
Oh.
Shenanigans at a minimum.
You're saying I'm gonna minimize the amount that I'm talking by talking more. Gotcha.
Yeah.
This is episode 189, which we're calling Inflamado. Inflamado, thanks to Jason Brown, who named that, which is Portuguese, Alex, for in flames, on fire.
On fire. Yep.
Flames are upon thee, Alex.
Flames are upon thee, Sean, because I'm going to roast you so hard this episode.
Are you? Why?
So hard.
Don't roast me. I am unroastable. I am Sean, the unroastable, which could be a Keyforge deck, which we'll talk about later. So we're talking, of course, about Fireball Island this episode, which I hear there's a little things that are set on fire in that game. Also, in our double take, we're talking about Lisboa. So there's a bit of an earthquake, flood, and fire. So I think that's a very apt name, Jason. Good job. And we get all of our episode titles from our awesome guild members over on our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, where before every episode, we put up a Dukes on deck, which, Alex, you posted, and you're like, hey, everybody, short turnaround time here, get on it. And the guild came through with tons of input for episode title and also contributions to the various games that we're talking about. So we'll give you the rest of the episode title runners-up at the end of the episode. That felt like a lot of talking on my part, Alex. How you doing? Let's have you talk a little.
Well, I was doing pretty well. We had a big Kickstarter campaign end today. The mood in the office was pretty good. And then, so here's the thing. We had some beers for game night. And I finished off one. I was going to get a second one, and it was one of those where, no, I'm fine.
Lightweight Duke Alex.
No, it's fine. But I was going in there to get one, and I couldn't find a bottle opener.
Clumsy Duke Alex?
I was trying to use a spoon, and it slipped.
Oh, boy.
And I cut my fingers pretty bad. I'm showing Sean right now.
Oh.
So I nicked up both of them pretty good. I went and bandaged that all up, put on some antibiotics, went back into the kitchen, and someone from Genius Games, who we work with, came in there, and I said, hey, do you have a bottle opener handy? You know where one is? She's like, yeah, and slid open the drawer, and sure enough, sitting right there was a bottle opener. Oops. Anyway, that's how I'm doing, Sean.
Well, you know what, Alex? I don't know if you can see this. I, too, cut my finger today.
What are you flipping me off for? I didn't do anything to you.
Because it's on my middle finger. I was in court. I had this giant box of exhibits today. I had so many exhibits in court today. I pulled it out, paper cut, like big paper cut, like immediately started bleeding. Like I got blood all over the top exhibit. Like it was pretty nuts. So.
Oh, man.
Yep. I've got super glue on it now. So hopefully I'll take care of it. So Alex, I'm just saying, apparently we like to cut our fingers today.
Yeah, I guess so.
This is actually National Cut Your Fingers Day. Did you know that?
Is it really?
It really is.
That's a terrible holiday.
I don't know why anyone would ever come up with that.
I don't know. From the National Cut Your Fingers Association?
It's from the greeting card. The greeting card people came up with it for some reason.
No, I think it was actually Big Band-Aid that came up with it.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
What's the generic term for Band-Aid?
Band-Aid?
Adhesive.
Bandage?
Adhesive bandage?
Finger wrap?
Finger wrap. Yep.
Sure. And anyway, yeah, I'm pretty tired, though. I've been working straight through the weekend because I got done with BGG-Con and then immediately went into the tail end of a Kickstarter campaign. So I'm a little tired. The voice is certainly worse for the wear, but I'm here and I'm excited to talk because I got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about.
Do you guys plan that out? Do you plan it out to finish up like at the tail end of BGGCon?
We planned it out to finish so that we didn't run into anything past Black Friday or into the Thanksgiving holiday. And so this was sort of the last possible time we felt we could possibly run the campaign.
By the way, typically we record Thursdays, which would be American Thanksgiving. We're actually recording Tuesday.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, except for you Canadians who celebrated it a couple weeks ago. Right?
Sure.
Theirs is early? I think theirs is early.
Something.
Happy late Thanksgiving, Boards Alive.
Specifically, Boards Alive.
Only Boards Alive.
Yep.
And Justin Trudeau. I like that guy.
All right.
Okay, hey. Alex, why don't I start talking about a game?
Yep.
You have a lot of games to talk about. Me, not so much. Because, you know, I'm not living the high life of a board game insider like some other people on this podcast.
I got so much inside dirt. You want to hear all of it, especially on J.R. Honeycutt.
Okay.
That guy I got all sorts of dirt on.
That's weird. It's a weird thing to say.
Yeah. Just saying.
So, when would it make sense to talk about Keyforge, Alex? First or second for me?
Second.
Okay, so I won't talk about Keyforge. Instead, I will talk about Tramways from Albin Viard. I'm a fan of Albin Viard. I've had a couple of his games, Town Center. I have Clinic, and he uses Card City XL, yeah. And he kind of uses some similar mechanics in some of his games, and they're very thinky. They're very interesting. The mechanics are kind of light in some respects, but the depth of play is incredible. So in Tramways, it's a little bit different than the other Albin VR games that I've played. It is basically a route building and a pick up and deliver style game, which has not historically been one of my favorite types of games, but it's definitely grown on me. I talked last episode about Railways of the World, which is route building and pick up and deliver. And I enjoyed that. So I think that gaming taste of mine is changing a little bit. But what's interesting here is you have these modular map tiles, and it's a city with different areas. So there's like residential areas, there's commercial areas, there's industrial areas, there's areas that aren't yet fully developed. And so in the course of play, you're going to turn them into different types of those residential, commercial, industrial, etc. And then you're going to build rail networks, tramway networks between them, and delivering certain citizens to them. It has an interesting auction mechanic. You're going to bid at the start of each round. I believe there are 6 rounds. You're bidding for turn order. Turn order is important for a couple reasons. Number one, it's going to give you the first pick of one of these new cards to add to your deck, because there's a bit of a deck management, hand management, kind of like a light deck building in the same way as like baseball highlights, where you're slowly adding cards over time, unlike, say, a Dominion or Clank, where you're continually doing that. And additionally, it's going to give you priority when you're moving things around the city on the different tramway networks. So it's kind of important, but it's also kind of a weird auction system. I'm not going to describe how it works because we were doing it wrong the first half of the game, and then we kind of figured it out. But it's a weird auction system. But I think it's necessary to have some sort of auction in this game, but it's weird. It was definitely weird. And then you're going to be playing cards from your hand on your turn. A round consists of players taking 2 turns. On their first turn, everyone takes 1 action. On their second turn, everyone takes 2 actions. So 3 actions a turn, basically, or a round, basically 18 actions in this entire game. And the cards have multiple things on them, multiple symbols on them. Some of them might give you money. Some of them might have a certain destination or origin type. Some of them might say build a rail. And you're going to take an action and playing different cards from your hand to accomplish that action. And so you may be playing a card that has 3 or 4 different symbols on it, but for that particular action, you're only really using one of them. Sometimes you might use multiple. So it's some interesting decisions of, wow, I really need to be able to play this residential card to be able to pick up or deliver from a residential area. But that's also my route building, the only route building card I have available to me. So I may not be able to do that. it's some pretty interesting decisions. And you're going to score points for delivering people from one place to another. The more connections you go through, the more money and points you get. But if you're also going over someone else's tramway, you're going to have to pay them points and money, which is interesting. So it was good. I liked it. I think I need to play it again now that I have a better understanding of it. I played with the Wham boys, Matthew and Matt. And
Wham!
I think 3 was a pretty good number, although I think 4 might be the sweet spot. It plays up to 5, which sounds pretty crazy, but I think 4 might really be where it's at. So I'm eager to give it another shot. It didn't wow me. Like I know Matt really likes it, but I liked it well enough to keep playing it and play it some more and get a better feel for it. So yeah, that's Tramways, designed by Albin Viard.
All right. Very cool. Well, let me jig right into BGG-Con, Sean. And for folks who don't know, this is at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. It was cold out there. We were trying to get away from the cold here in St. Louis, and it was not much warmer down there. I was chained to the booth for a lot of the weekend, but it did not stop me. Let me count. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost a dozen new plays.
Okay. That's solid.
Not too bad. I didn't have a ton of time to really demo and go around, but yeah, I got in stuff where I could. My first new play came during booth setup, and I saw kind of diagonal from us, there was someone Dukes of Dice listeners might be familiar with, Chris Cluey, setting up for Twilight of the Gods. He was demoing there for Victory Point Games. This is his game. He designed it himself. For folks who don't know that name, Chris Cluey, he was the punter for the Minnesota Vikings. Tremendous nerd, played on tabletop with Will Wheaton at one point, designs games, really cool, really nice, down-to-earth guy. So I played Twilight of the Gods with him. He taught me how to play. This is a game that is kind of in the vein of Magic the Gathering, but of course has its own twist on it. The core twist of this is that the cards don't have costs in the sense of mountains, plains, swamps, whatever. They have costs in terms of level 1 resources, level 2 resources, and level 3 resources. And how you get those resources is you have to trade with your opponent. You have to agree to trade, say, a level 2 resource with each other, or a level 3 resource with each other, or a level 1 resource with each other. And then you can put one resource into play from that stack. If your opponent doesn't want to trade with you, then you can seize the resource if the top cards of your deck are the same, or you can burn cards out of your hand to take resources that you need anyway. But obviously, you're burning resources, not necessarily the best idea. The game ends when one player has lost their deck. Their deck represents your life stack, so it's sort of a continual counter ticking towards the end of the game. There's some other interesting things. There is a certain effect where I think it's called reveal, or I don't remember it offhand, but basically I can reveal one of the mana cards I've placed in front of you, because remember, we trade cards with each other. And so if I force you to reveal one of the cards in front of you, there's a bottom effect on that card that serves as sort of a trap. So I'm giving you resources, but I'm also giving you some nasty stuff I might be able to activate later. When you attack either your opponent's life stack or their discard pile to burn cards. Obviously, people can block just like you would in, say, Magic the Gathering. It was a good amount of fun. I don't know if this is one I would get very deep into, but Sean, this absolutely would be right up your alley in terms of the kind of game you'd really appreciate. I think you'd find some really interesting combos and interesting play in this.
Yeah, I remember taking a look at it when it was on Kickstarter, right? You said it was on Kickstarter?
I think it was originally, and it's out now from Victory Point Games. I don't know what the availability is on it. Hopefully pretty good. So, no, this is one I'd recommend specifically you and folks who have your game taste to give a try. Chris was very kind in walking me through the game and beating me handily. Well, not handily. It was by a turn, but still. But this is the kind of game that I think you would have a better chance of diving even more into. And it's one that you buy the starter set, and you've got pretty much what you need to make an interesting deck out of it.
Did he remember doing an interview with you for Holding Court?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Or did he just pretend to remember?
Well, so I mentioned he was on tabletop, and when he was on tabletop, he may or may not have been playing a not-to-be-named Monochromatic Wolf title and winning that game. So he saw that on my shirt, and I think that had him maybe remember me. But I also mentioned it to him, and he seemed to at least remember me. I don't know. You never know. I will say, very nice guy, incredibly nice guy, was demoing hard at that booth all con long, was not someone who was not accessible. He was there enthusiastically demoing this game, says it's a game he really loves, and you can see the passion for it. So that is Twilight of the Gods from Victory Point Games. Got into play with BJ and his crew from the Gumbo crew of Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. And I ended up playing a lot of games with BJ's crew at this con. This is a retheme of Betrayal at House on the Hill, but with a D&D theme to it. As you know, in Betrayal, you are going to reveal certain cards until one of you becomes the haunt, or the haunt is triggered in some form or fashion. In this game that we were playing, there was no one person was the haunt. There was a cooperative haunt triggered. Basically, a bunch of cultists spawned in the basement along with an iron golem and a wizard who was driven mad, and you had to escort the wizard upstairs and get her insanity cured. I will tell you, Sean, we fought the most incompetent set of bad guys in that basement I've ever seen.
Man.
7 of them swarmed one of our characters, and all of them whiffed. Every single one of them whiffed. I think between all of them over the course of that game, maybe there were 1 or 2 hits on us. That was it. It was a pretty pathetic showing from the cultists. It was still a close call in terms of winning, just because of how far that the magic user was from where she needed to be. But we got it done. This is a game where the mechanics are kind of whatever, but the story that you build over the course of the game can be pretty engaging. I finally played Root for the first time, Sean.
Yeah.
That happened. I played that with actually the crew from Albuquerque. I played that with Nick and Chris and Rory and Nick's friend, whose name is eluding me right now.
Ray.
Is it Ray?
I'm pretty sure it's Ray, if it's the friend I'm thinking of.
Okay. It might have been Ray.
Tall, thin glasses, short cropped hair?
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay, that's Ray.
Yeah. I played Root. So Root is an asymmetric faction game, sort of area control. You're basically trying to get a certain number of victory points. How you get victory points varies wildly from depending on what faction you're playing. I was playing as the Vagabond, which is sort of this solo person who runs around the board causing chaos, completing quests, and trying to build relationships with different factions in order to win. I did not win. Nick was playing as the Bird People and just swarmed the board. No one really did anything about it. I got to get more plays to this with different factions to see if I really, really like it. But where are you at Root, Sean? How many times have you played that game?
I have played it 3 times, and I'm 3-0. Woo!
Wow.
Yeah.
Different factions each time?
Different factions.
Did you play as the Vagabond?
I have not played as the Vagabond yet.
The Vagabond's a fun one.
The Vagabond is the least interesting one to me, I understand how you would kind of gravitate towards the Vagabond, and given my play style, just in general, you could see how I would kind of shy away from the Vagabond.
Totally get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't choose that faction for that specific reason. We just sort of sat down and handed out factions, because I wasn't the only one learning that game.
Yeah.
Rory was the Woodland Alliance, but didn't really understand the rules of the Woodland Alliance, and didn't have a single unit on the board at any point in that game.
Wait, the Woodland, is that the orange one?
Green one, I think.
Oh, the green one. Yeah. No, that was the first. I played them the first time. They're the insurgents, basically.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly right. So that's Root. I need to get more plays in with factions. It might be a game that we'll review at some point, so stay tuned.
And if you like Root, then you need to try Cuba Libre or any of the other coin games. Yeah.
I wouldn't say like is exactly where I'd say. I was charmed by it, but the rules were a little convoluted at times. So, got to play more of it. The Table is Lava. This is from R&R Games. Sean, have you heard of this game?
No, I have not.
This is a dexterity game where you throw cards on the table, and wherever they land, assuming they land touching another card, you put meeples on them. Then your objective is to get those meeples off by chucking your cards at them, while hopefully landing those same cards close enough to the island to add your own meeples onto the board. Pure dexterity, pure fun. I bought it with the 5-player expansion too. Just silly, goofy, good filler. Good, messy filler. Table is Lava. Also played Drop It for the first time from Cosmos. This is a game where you're dropping shapes and trying to score points. In that way, if a shape, though, touches either something of the same shape or same color, it doesn't score points at all, so you've got to be careful about where you're dropping things. If it leans against a wall that has, for instance, a color or shape restriction, you're also not going to get points for it. I did pretty well, just played through a demo. Would be one I'd be maybe interested in picking up. Has a nice bit of table presence. Have you tried that one, Sean?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Not a Sean game necessarily, but again, a nice filler. The one I was really, really excited to demo is a game called The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. And I think I may have talked about this on the podcast before, Sean, in some form or fashion, but I've not played it up until BGG-Con. This is from Hub Games, and the designer, whose name is Michael J. Fox, no, not that Michael J. Fox, was at the booth teaching the game, and he gave an overview of this. So for folks who don't know, this is a game where you work as basically hospital staff trying to help a dying older man named Billy Kerr, help him resolve his regrets, piece together memories from his past, and ultimately discover Billy's life and help him come to rest by the time he dies at the end of the game. And he will die at the end of the game.
Holy cow.
You hadn't heard that theme?
No. By the way, the name of the game is actually Holding On.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr.
Yeah.
My mistake. Apologies to Hub Games and Michael J. Fox.
I'm looking at it now, and wow. Like, it sounds interesting, but wow. Okay.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy for sure.
Ha! Wait. It's heavy, Doc.
Oh, boy.
Michael J. Fox?
Jeez. All right. So you get these partial memory cards from talking to Billy. By the way, each turn you can provide either physical care to keep him from dying or maybe help him heal a bit, or you can provide palliative care, in which case you'll get care tokens and learn a little bit more about Billy by getting more partial memories. The partial memories are a little fuzzy. On the back, they're like little snippets of things he says, and then you're going to look for complete memories to kind of fill in the gaps of what really happened. The scenario we were playing, you beat by discovering enough full memories to unlock that level. Won't give any spoilers about what you discover, but Billy's led an interesting life, and apparently this sort of evolves as you go through the scenarios. A fascinating emotional theme to this game. The problem I had with the demo of this was the designer gave me an overview, was like, hey, here's how you play, here's how this goes, sort of, but didn't really explain the details of the rules. And then someone came over to pull him away for an interview. He was like, oh, that guy I think's played it before. Go ahead, give that a shot. And so I got my demo from a guy who didn't really fully know the rules.
Yeah.
So it was very choppy. So I don't know if the gameplay itself is any good, but the theme is certainly interesting. So that's Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. Don't know if I could recommend it quite yet. Hopefully I can get a chance to actually play it at some point here in the near future. Because, hey, guess what? I'm going to be at PAX next week. Wow.
Yeah,
I played War Chest from AEG. Sean, I think you've talked about that one on the show before.
I have. Big fan.
Yep. Orleans meets chess, sort of how I would think about it. I will say, I demoed this one without getting too much of the mechanics. The demoer said they'd never seen someone with that many dead pieces at the end of the game. So set a very bad record. This was not a game where people were fighting over control points. This is a game where I was putting pieces on the board and getting them slaughtered, often very quickly. I did bad. I didn't do a good job, Sean. I did very badly.
Well,
in fairness, I got there during turn 2 of the demo, so it wasn't totally my fault. Anyway, that's a good stopping point for BGG Con Part 1. Back to you, Sean.
Okay. Hey, Alex, can I talk about Keyforge now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. So, Keyforge, we mentioned in news a couple episodes ago. This is a Fantasy Flight game designed by Richard Garfield, who is a fantastic designer. Designed a little game called Magic the Gathering, Netrunner, original designer of Netrunner, King of Tokyo.
King of Tokyo, yeah. Bunny Kingdom.
And so, okay, here's the deal. There was a period of time when Magic first came out, when I was in middle school. What was I, middle school? When I first started, 6th grade, 7th grade, when I first started playing, and there was no internet really. There was no net decking where you could just find out the best combos and things like that. There were magazines, but like they'd report on the tournament that happened like 2 months ago. Right? And things had changed since then anyway. So there was just this incredible feeling of, oh man, I'm the only one in my play group of all my friends here at school that owns a single copy of a Shivan Dragon, which is not a great creature, but it's this big 5/5 flying red dragon that looked really cool. And you just know when you play it on the table that it's going to be awesome. But it's not. It's not a great creature. Like, a lot of the stuff that you had wasn't amazing. Like, a lot of it just, but it was fun, right? And so your deck wasn't some finely tuned, killing machine. It was, you want to have multiple copies, the maximum number of copies you can have of the same card, so there's consistency. That's the big thing in deck building, is consistency. You want your deck to be consistent. But before that happened, before people could just buy a bunch of singles or do whatever, it was just this really cool period of time. And Magic has never really been able to recapture that. Now, from my perspective, there's tons of other cool stuff about Magic. And you kind of maybe get some of that in like cube drafting, which is some alternate formats, maybe some in like Elder Dragon Highlander, or it's now called Commander. So there's some formats that try and recapture it, but it's just not quite there. And that's what Richard Garfield wanted to do when he designed Keyforge. He wanted to kind of recapture that experience. So what Keyforge does is they sell it in 37 card decks. One card is really just your deck list, and then there are 12 semi-randomized cards in one of 3 different factions. So I think there are houses. And there are 7 houses total. And so every single deck is absolutely 100% unique. No one will ever own my deck unless I sell it to them, which is really interesting. And so much so that this randomly generated deck name is placed on the card back of each card.
And on the front, on the bottom too. It's all up in that card.
Right. So really, every single card in this game is technically unique, even though there may be millions of copies of a particular card title. They're going to have the deck name at the bottom. So it's really cool, and there is no deck construction, there is no deck building. You just open up this deck, you shuffle it up, and certainly some decks are going to be more powerful than others, but you just kind of get what you get. So it's interesting. So let me ask you this, Alex. Have you played Hearthstone?
I have never played Hearthstone.
Okay. So the game itself reminds me a little bit of Hearthstone, which I enjoy. I think it's a really good game. Basically, what you're doing on your turn is you have your hand of cards, and you call one of your 3 houses. And for that turn, you can only play cards from your hand of that house. You can only attack with creatures in play of that house, and then you can also discard cards from your hand of that house if you need to. But basically, I can't really do anything else. And the object is to be the first to forge these 3 keys. That's the name of the game, Keyforge. And you do that by collecting Ember. And at the start of your turn, if you have 6 Ember, then you automatically craft or forge a key. And so there's a really interesting element to this game. With my initial plays, it's felt very random and swingy. And I don't know, I think that might kind of be an aspect of the game. Because you're playing out cards from your hand very quickly. There's no cost to these cards, typically. If I just call Brobnar, and I have 6 Brobnar cards in hand, I could pretty much just play them as I want. And now certainly there's some timing issues. Maybe one particular card, there's not an advantage to playing it right now, so maybe you discard it or hold off on it, because ultimately your discards can get shuffled back in. It's not like Magic where if you go through your deck, you lose the game. But it's really interesting. It's really good. And the distribution model is really interesting. So I picked up the core set, the starter set, which gives you 2 preset decks or 2 decks that everyone can have access to, and then it gives you 2 random decks, and then I picked up 2 other random decks. So I basically have the 2 starter decks, and then I have 4 random decks. And I haven't been 3D printing much, but I said, you know what? I need some organization for this, so I fired up the 3D printer, and I've been printing up some storage solutions for the last couple days. So I really like this game. I think it's really good. And I think it's going to be easy for me not to sink a bunch of money into it. Like, LCGs or collectible card games. What do you think of Keyforge?
So Sean, I will tell you, prior to playing it or trying it, I was skeptical, but also optimistic, if that makes any degree of sense. I was skeptical because it's in that sort of CCG vein, or felt like it could be in that CCG vein. I was optimistic because, in theory, you could spend $10 and enjoy the game, or $20 and have the best deck in the world. You could have the best deck in the world, or at least a deck that could be very competitive if you knew how to use it. So I was drawn to that concept. I like that concept a lot. The trick with this is I don't know if that CCG side of things is going to have me not enjoy the play so much. The biggest hurdle for me, though, with CCGs is something like deck building. I don't like building decks.
Right.
Guess what with Keyforge, Sean? I can't build decks. I am not allowed to build decks under the way this game works. I'm sure there will be formats where people will do that, but at its core, you get what you get, and you got to make the best use of it. It's part of what I love so much about Baseball Highlights 2045, first mentioned, is that you have to work with what you have. That's the case with Keyforge, too. You have to do your best with what you have, whether it's what's in your hand or your deck or whatever else, and find some interesting synergies that way. And I got to tell you, Sean, I tried this at BGG-Con. I played this with BJ's group. My first game was against BJ. I was playing with someone else's deck. And I drew a whole hand of discards, 6 discards at the same time. And Dr. Gumbel was never the same after that. I proceeded to mop the floor with him. I then played someone else, because BJ had gotten wiped the game before as well. I beat him 3-0. His friend broke out that same deck and beat me 3-1 with that same deck. So I was a little hooked at that point.
Huh.
And the very next day, I did something I didn't think there was a chance of me doing. I bought 2 Keyforge decks.
Oh, boy.
And my very first deck was Smithison, the constantly immovable. I love the randomly generated names on these decks. I love it. I absolutely love it. Some of them don't make any sense. The second deck I bought was Dashel MG Spectrum Nyquist. Wasn't the greatest. But Sean, you have a good name, right?
I've got 2 interesting names. So yeah, you're right. This is interesting. There's some algorithm that names these, and you can go on like Reddit and some other places where people are kind of collecting all the weird names. So there's some that are just bad. Like there's some poorly, like just bad name decks. I think I kind of have one of them. It's a little bit racist. It's Yeshua, the Ashy Moneylender.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. Unfortunately, it's a really good deck. The other one I have is not nearly as odd, but it's just interesting. It's the Surprisingly Awesome Brian. That's just, I don't know. Yeah, there's something like charming about some of these deck names. It's really strange. What is interesting to me is, like I mentioned before, decks are going to be better than others. But there is a handicap system that they have in place. So one of the ways you can kind of get a good idea if your deck is any good is how many rares do you have. So I've seen some decks with as few as 2 rares. I have one deck with 6 rares, which is pretty interesting. There's also like there's an ultra rare. I haven't gotten any ultra rares, and then there's some cards that are I can't remember the name, but they're basically in a different house. Like they're originally supposed to be in one house, but they get redone in a different house.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So in theory, at some point, and have you downloaded the app yet?
No, I haven't.
So what you can do is, each deck has its own unique QR code. So I downloaded the app, and it lets you kind of keep track of your decks. You scan the QR code, and then eventually you'll be able to insert like win-loss ratios, and you can like look up decks, and it's going to collect a ton of data. Last night when I signed up, there were like 99,000 decks that had been registered.
Wow.
So I'm sure it's well over 100,000 as of today. And so I think what's going to be interesting is we're going to get a lot of information from that win-loss ratio as far as which houses tend to win more, I have some suspicions which houses I think are better than others. Like I think Dis is probably the strongest, but whatever. And then eventually, based on how strong your deck is, there's a handicap system where there's this concept of chains. And in fact, there are some cards that when you play them, they generate chains for you. And chains are bad because basically chains mean you'll have some turns where you're drawing less cards. And it's sort of a counting down mechanism that's meant to kind of just hinder you a little bit. But yeah, I'm really excited about this game. I think I'll probably wind up picking up another 2 decks, maybe 4, but that'll probably be it until they release a new expansion or something, or the next set, really.
Or is Rory going to be stocking those at Empire, to your knowledge?
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. I think it's a good bet. It's another one of those that is unbelievably hot. It's top of the hotness on BGG right now. And I will tell you, the gameplay itself has really attracted me. The fact that it's that simple. There's no mana cost. There's declare this house, play this card. Declare this house, activate this card. There's some intricacies in how some of the rules work together, but it's the mechanics at its core are pretty simple, and I really enjoy that. And I'm excited about this game. I didn't think I'd be excited about this game, but man, did it hook me fast. It hooked me really fast. It just took a play. So even if you're skeptical about this, I would at least give it a look because I think this is going to be one that has some amount of staying power, and at least right now, you can have a lot of fun with for not a ton of money. Right.
Like if you're going to do a Fantasy Flight LCG and you want to go all in, even at the start, you're buying 2 to 3 core sets, right? That's like $90, $120, whatever. And here, $10, $20. You want to buy the starter. I think actually the starter is a pretty decent investment. I think it's like $40 or $30, and it gets you 2 random decks, 2 starter decks, and then a bunch of tokens and reminder cards and things like that. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Can I also say my first deck ever, Smithison, the Constantly Immovable, is actually a pretty killer deck, I think, in that it has, I played with it today for the first time. It has 3 Control the Weak cards in Dis, and Control the Weak forces your opponent to pick a faction of your choice for the next turn. And on the first time I used it, my opponent only had 1 Sanctum card in hand, played the 1 Sanctum card. I then played it again. I had 3 copies of that card in my deck. So I played 3 back to back to back and forced her to play Sanctum all 3 times. And 2 of those times, she didn't have any Sanctum cards in play or in her hand. And so she couldn't do anything. I basically jammed up her turn with that Control the Weak, all while gathering Amber myself. And you add that on top of having a deck with 3 Shadow Selves that can do some nice damage soaking and leave your folks free to reap. I think that deck's pretty good. We'll see how it plays against other people, but...
Listen to you. You sound like some sort of hardcore gamer or something.
Yeah, I didn't think this was going to happen, Sean. And in fact, my tweet mentioning that I'd acquired Smithison, the Constantly Immovable, was a what have I done? Because this is not like me, Sean.
Nope.
This is not like me one bit. But yeah, I got Keyforge fever. There's no doubt about it.
Cool.
All right. Ready to talk more BGG, Con?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Let's do that, Alex.
Okay. Well, one of the cool things about BGG Con is they have a whole bunch of games in their dexterity area. And over the course of the weekend, I played a lot of Crokinole. But I also played several new dexterity games I hadn't tried. One called Spinball, where you're trying to put enough backspin on basically a ping pong ball to have it land in a little hole on your opponent's side. Interesting enough. I played Fin Bowling, which is sort of a crossbow, launch a disc into these little pins and get points that way. I played Sholin, which is this 19th century or 18th century game where you're sliding discs to try and get sets of them into holes down the board. It might as well be multiplayer solitaire. My whole point in mentioning this is I played all of these with J.R. Honeycutt, and I will tell you, if you're ever at a convention with J.R. Honeycutt, do not play dexterity games with him. Don't play social deduction games with him. You might want to just steer clear of either of those if you enjoy winning, because he is very good at both of those kinds of games. We played Crokinole, Spinball, Fin Bowling, Stolin. I was 0-4 against him in all of those games. 0-4. Some of those were close. Some of them weren't. But, yeah, beware of JR.
Noted, anyway. Alex. Noted.
We also arranged a small, and by we, I mean Chris Holm, arranged a small Baseball Highlights 2045 tournament. And we had four players for this, which is more than enough to have a great time. It was Chris, a guy named Simon, myself, and Philip Millman, my new arch nemesis and rival.
Ooh.
For folks who don't know the history of this, Philip Millman knocked me out in the semifinals of the Dice Tower Baseball Highlights tournament. I had apparently beaten him in the first tournament we ran. Then we had this rematch in the semifinals this last year, and it was tight and tense, and he won in a 5-game series in Game 5. Well, sure enough, we both make it through pool play and make it to the World Series. And here's how the World Series goes. He's playing as St. Louis, so this is going to be a little counterintuitive. I'll just say Philip. He wins Game 1 7-6. I win Game 2 4-2. He wins Game 3 in extra innings 9-7. I win Game 4 7-6 in extra innings. Then I take the 3-2 series lead in another extra innings game 11-10 in extra innings. And then it heads back home. He wins Game 6 5-4. And then he wins game. So in Game 7, I spoiled it a little bit. I was leading 5-2 in Game 7. 5-2, Sean. And there's an ability on that I had in my deck called Home Cookin'. If I'm the home team, instantly get a home run. Fantastic when you're the home team. But because he had home field advantage in this, for these visitor games, that card was completely worthless. I pinch hit blind with a 5-2 lead, and that card comes up. And that's when that whole game turned around. That card was totally worthless. I lost pace. I couldn't score any additional runs from there, and he beat me 6-5 in Game 7. It was an epic World Series of this game. Only cements why I love it that much more. Congratulations to Philip. I hope to see you again at Dice Tower Con next year, where we are going to be planning for a 32-team tournament.
Yikes.
Yeah. It's going to be legit. But yeah, I felt like I choked pretty hard in that and didn't feel good about myself or my play. Womp womp. Anyway, next up, Carpe Diem. This is the newest from Stefan Feld. Sean, have you heard much about this one?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about it. He's putting out a bunch of stuff. There's the new one from Renegade coming out, the 1828.
Yeah, jumping the gun on that. It's a 2-player game. It's a 2-player game about the election of 1828, which, interesting. Coming out from Renegade Games, I think sometime next year. So Feld fans, keep an eye out. Though this one was the hotness at BGG Con, at least somewhat of the hotness. This is a game that is on the lighter side of Feld's for sure. It is also on the uglier side of Feld's. I hate how this game looks. Graphic design, visual appeal of it. And yet, much like a lot of Feld's, mechanically, it works pretty well. What you're doing is you have a worker who you will send out along these sort of different paths to run across, grab a tile, add it to your board. If you complete a building on your board, you'll get some sort of special power or effect from it. There's also this interesting end-of-round scoring mechanism where you're going to pick between an intersection between 2 cards and get to score those 2 cards, but that intersection is only available once per game. So you might block it from other people using it, or you might get some nice benefit of it yourself or use it too early in the game. Who knows? Very nice mechanics. Very nice mechanically in this one. Utterly athematic. The use of colors in this game is baffling to me. It doesn't look good, and yet I really enjoyed it. I like this as a Feld. I don't know if this will be too light for you ultimately, Sean, but it's a Feld. I'm sure you're going to try it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that's Carpe Diem. I played late night at BGG Con an out-of-print game called Asante by Rudiger Dorn. Sean, have you played this one?
I haven't, but I'm familiar with it, yeah.
If Empire has this one, I strongly recommend you give this one a look. It's really fun. It's a 2-player game where you're buying and selling wares, trying to get up to 60 coins, but you do a lot to mess with your opponents. You can play opponent-disrupting animals. You can play out valuable artifacts, other people with nifty abilities. And I ended up beating Josh at this one. He had acquired it in the marketplace. Ton of fun. I should really look for this one. I want to add this one to my collection if I can. Really, really enjoyed this game. All right, last one I'll talk about, because I already talked a bunch about Keyforge, is a game called Just One. And this is a game I heard a lot of buzz about as a party game. This is put out by Repos Productions, and this is a very simple game. There's a clue. One person has the clue. One person, you're trying, okay, I'm going to back up and re-explain this. It's a very simple game. I don't know why I'm stumbling over this so much. There's one person who's trying to guess a word on a card. Everyone else at the table, this is a cooperative game, is trying to help them guess that word by giving them a one-word clue on their whiteboard to get them there. Here's the trick. That one-word clue can't be the same as anyone else giving a one-word clue. If two clues are the same, both of them cancel out, and the person guessing doesn't see it. So you might see limited information. So the idea of this is you need to come up with a clue that's obscure enough that someone else isn't going to write it, but close enough to the word to where the person has a chance at guessing this. I played this again with BJ's crew, and man, oh man, we played this thing, I think, a good 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
Yeah. This was just what I needed late night on a Saturday at a con. This was game of the con kind of material. Good con game. Plays 3, there's a variant 4, but pretty much 4 to 7. Plays best at 4 or 5. I think any more than that, you have too much information on the table. But man, oh man, was this a ton of fun. There was a not safe for this podcast moment with BJ having a very difficult time trying to guess the word carpet off of the adult clues we gave him for that. Not going to get too much more into that one, but let's just say BJ made a dumb guess. Very bad guess. But I really enjoyed the game. It was perhaps the game of the con, though I'm starting to think Kayforge may actually have ended up being the game of the con. In any case, I really liked it, and I would strongly recommend people check out just one. This one was a hit on a lot of people's tables, and I anticipate this is one you're going to hear a lot about in the coming months. I think this one has big-time potential to be at the Codenames kind of level.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So that's just one. And that's my BGG Con. Ton of games, ton of fun. Love this show. I think it's my second or third favorite. I can't tell you where it ranks with Geekway to the West, but Dice Tower Con is just a bit ahead of it right now still for me. I love BGG Con, though. Ton of fun. It's going to be at a different place next year, Sean, not at the airport. It's going to be, I think, at the downtown Hyatt.
Yeah.
Which I think will be nice. Also, of course, got my Hard 8 fix in. That's the barbecue joint just to the north of the airport. Man, oh man, I was experienced there. My eyes were not bigger than my stomach, but it was close. So real quick, I actually saw a bunch of Hard 8 pictures. Yeah.
On Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And so I told Raquel, I'm like, okay, this is terrible. So we actually wound up going to the local Whole Hog barbecue. Remember Whole Hog, Alex?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, not as good as Hard 8, but pretty close. Pretty close.
Here's the thing, Sean. St. Louis barbecue.
Okay, blah 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 blah. Yeah.
Is going to top any and all this.
I know.
There's a place right near work called Big Baby Q that closes in a month, and we're so disappointed because they have the best brisket you will ever have.
Ooh,
yeah,
it's a big claim, Alex.
It's a claim I think they can back up, but they're closing and opening up a downtown location.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, this place was named by Food and Wine as the best barbecue in Missouri.
Okay.
It's legit. Their pastrami is even better, weirdly enough. Barbecue pastrami.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, very tasty. Anyway, that's what we played. Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, first up in news, Black Mirror, the game? It's a game called Nosedive. I don't know a ton about this, Sean. What are we talking about here?
So it's based off one of the episodes. Have you watched much of Black Mirror, Alex?
I've watched the majority of episodes. I haven't watched all of the episodes.
Okay, so I can't remember. I think this was like season 2 or season 3. And Nosedive, so Black Mirror is this anthology series that's on Netflix. I think it was originally on the BBC. And it's typically near future, and it's kind of like Twilight Zone where, it's anthology and it's taking a look at technology and implications of modern technology and what's going to happen because of it. So this particular episode focuses on social media and, people liking your stuff, but you get a score. Everyone has a rating. And every time you have an interaction with someone, you can, thumb them up or thumb them down. And based on your rating affects where you can live, types of services you can have. It's pretty interesting. And this whole episode's about this social climber who's trying to raise her rating to be able to live somewhere. Did you see this one?
Yeah, I love that episode.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Black Mirror, and I thought this was a fantastic episode. And so she without going into everything, she was trying so hard to raise her rating that she's doing a very bad job of it. And she takes a nosedive. Hey, that's the name of the episode. So there's not a lot of information about this game. It is a social game. I don't know if it's necessarily social deduction or just some kind of party game. There is some amount of app integration. It plays 3 to 6 players, and it looks like, at least initially, it's only going to be a Target exclusive. Asmodee's putting this out. So, I mean, really, there's not much to talk about here in terms of gameplay. We can kind of make some assumptions based on what the episode's about. I think it's probably you're trying to craft a life that is praiseworthy from the perspective of all the people rating you. But I think it's interesting that, number one, it's a Black Mirror game. Number two, it's this particular episode. And does this mean we're going to see additional episodes turned into games from Black Mirror?
I think it depends on if it's successful or not. Now, what would be your preferred episode?
I don't know. So my favorite episode, I can't remember the name of it, but it was where there's a it's like a Star Trek crew. Did you see that one?
Oh yeah, I know the episode. Yeah,
and basically it's kind of like a virtual reality, like MMO RPG. I don't think that would necessarily turn into a good game.
It could be a good cooperative game.
Yeah.
Try and fool this guy to escape.
Could be.
I don't know. USS Callister is the name of the episode.
Yes. Yeah, that was a fantastic episode. But yeah, I've seen all but the latest season. I think there are 4 seasons on Netflix right now. I think it's a fantastic show.
You've seen part of the 4th season because that's when that episode was.
Oh, maybe I've seen everything then.
Have you seen the one with the museum?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you've seen all of it.
Okay, maybe I have.
San Junipero is an awesome episode, but I don't know if it would make a good game. Post on the Guild what you think would make a good Black Mirror game if you like that show. There's some of them that would make absolutely terrible games. There's some of them might work. White Bear. Oh, that's interesting. Did you see that episode? Do you know the one I'm talking about? White Bear's the one. I don't want to talk too much without spoiling this one.
We should start a Black Mirror podcast.
No?
It's really good.
It is really good, but no. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to give it some thought. Maybe we'll come back next episode with what we think would make...
Wait, which one's White Bear?
White Bear's... I don't want to spoil it. If I describe it too much, I'm going to spoil it. She has amnesia. She wakes up. There are people recording her on the phones.
Yes. Oh, man. Okay, stop there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's... Oh, boy. Yeah.
I don't know how that would work.
Oh. They're dark. Some of them are really, really... Actually, they're all really dark.
They're not all really dark. San Junipero's not dark at all.
You don't think so?
San Junipero? That's the one where you have the love story.
The different... Yeah. Okay. They're mostly dark. They're mostly really dark.
Yeah. There's usually one or two an episode that isn't, but...
Yeah.
Hang the DJ. Hang the DJ's not one. It's not dark.
Hang the DJ?
Yeah. It's the one where... I'll say this because it happens early in the episode enough where it's not spoiling things. You are matched up with someone, and then you're given a certain amount of time before that relationship will end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That one's not dark.
Okay.
Anyway.
But the ones that are dark are really dark.
No doubt. Very much so. So yeah, that's the Black Mirror game Nosedive. Take a look at that, or for that, in Target stores. Next up, CMON put out their 3rd quarterly report and this was not so good, Sean. What happened here?
Yeah, so, I mean, they're a publicly traded company on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, so they have to kind of reveal the financials to stockholders. So I saw this over on tabletopwire.com, and they lost $4.1 million in revenues for this 9-month period ending the 3rd quarter. This is down like a pretty sizable amount. And they're blaming losses on Kickstarter revenues didn't quite reach what they had expected, especially with games like A Song of Ice and Fire, the minis game, and then also Arcadia Quest Riders. In fact, I don't even remember. I don't even know what Arcadia Quest Riders is. I don't even remember that. I don't know. How did their Arcadia Quest space game go?
Arcadia Quest?
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. That game.
Let me look it up. Stand by.
So I'm sure it did fine, but it's not. I guess it's, they're projecting a certain amount, and if it's not getting there, even though it might look really good. And then also they've had a really big presence at some of the major conventions, so that's been kind of costly. So you've been to a lot more conventions than I have. What kind of presence have you seen for CMON? But by the way, CMON, big publisher of Arcadia Quest. A lot of different minis games. They've kind of been branching out into some other games, like Euro games. They have Newton. Is Newton? Is that the new one that came out? And then in a similar vein, what's the one I'm thinking of? Italian patrician families. That's amazing.
Don't know it offhand.
Oh, I can't think of it. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy. I'll figure it out. But yeah, so. That's interesting. So what kind of presence have you noticed they've had at conventions, especially the big conventions?
Oh, they're a huge player. They have, in fact, if I'm remembering I think this was CMON, they have a booth at Gen Con with just a giant statue that might as well be a mini. I remember seeing something similar, not quite as big, but a ginormous mini at their booth at Essen. They were in Hall 1, which is sort of the hall where the big boys and girls go. That is the big players hall. They were out there in full force. They have a ton of demo space and demo tables. They make sure Eric Lang is very, very available. No, if you want something from CMON or want to see something from CMON, they are very, very active and loud and big. But I will say this. It mentioned declining Kickstarter revenues. Kickstarter is a crowded place these days.
Yeah.
There are a lot of high quality projects going up, and the bar has been raised as we'll talk about here in a little bit with some things going on. Yeah, it's a tough place to be, and I think even things you'd expect to do 6 or 7 figures might have a harder time pulling that these days than you might think. Even things that would used to just blow things out of the water, it's not going to happen. So it doesn't surprise me to see this. Starcadia Quest, by the way, did a little shy of $1 million.
Oh, that seems low.
Yeah. I think the thing people don't always realize, too, is minis campaigns need to do way more than you think they do, because each individual sculpt in that can be hundreds or thousands of dollars, and a lot of these campaigns have a ton of sculpts, a ton of different sculpts to make and to add. So even at just shy of $1 million, I don't know how much money they made off of that game. Right. It might not have been a lot.
And I'm looking at like the first Arcadia Quest that was on Kickstarter in 2014. It was only $774,000. But that was early on. I wonder what Inferno did.
In any case.
Yeah. By the way, the game I was thinking of, I remembered Lorenzo
Il Magnifico.
Lorenzo Il Magnifico, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Go. Cool deal.
Fantastic game. I think you'd like it. You should play it.
So that's CMON, and it'll be curious to see what happens with CMON, because it might be a big sign for what could happen either with minis games or with the industry as a whole. But they are a big player, and they're worth watching as this goes forward. So that's the news from CMON. Sean, a Kickstarter to talk about. This is a game called Mechanisms. It was created by Daniel Zayas. Co-designed, I believe, by Derek Funkhauser, who does work over on the Board Game Spotlight. Were there other designers with this one, Sean? Do you know?
I don't know. I only saw that it was Daniel Zayas, but Zayas?
It's Zayas.
Okay. Did you get a chance to play this at BGG? Because I saw it, because I'm Facebook friends with him, and he was constantly going around showing off the prototype to a bunch of people. Did you see this? Did you see this getting played?
I am not a big enough deal
Oh, boy.
for Mr. Zayas to come over to the booth to show off his latest game to me, apparently, because I certainly wasn't asked. We did give him a ride over to the hotel at one point, so I talked with him a little bit, but yeah, we can talk about this one, Sean. I didn't see it played at any point,
Okay.
so I don't know how it played, but I do know it's been a struggle on Kickstarter for sure, a big struggle.
So, I mean, it's very niche, and it even tells you in the tagline for it. It's a party game for experienced gamers. Use an assortment of component props to get your friends to guess the game mechanisms. It's basically a type of like charades where they provide you with roads, with cubes, with like hex tiles, dice. A whole bunch of different stuff that you would typically find in a bunch of different types of games. And you draw a couple cards and you're trying to mime these different mechanisms like worker placement, like I think auctioning and a bunch of different mechanisms that as experienced gamers you would typically know the names of. And there's even a legacy component, which is kind of a wink and a nod. It's actually a pretty creative Kickstarter page. There's a lot of like tongue-in-cheek stuff throughout the Kickstarter page, but there's this legacy component where if you get like designers to sign, like actual game designers to sign a card that they have a mechanism in a game they've had, then that card is worth more points in the future. So it's not really a legacy mechanic, but it also kind of is. It's very, very tongue in cheek. It is currently at $2,200 of its $6,500 goal.
With 9 days left in the campaign.
Right. Well, let's correct that. It's going to be over very soon. It's going to be over November 30th when this episode drops. So we're going to drop on what, the 29th?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you're listening to this on the day this episode drops...
oh, no, sooner than that. We'll drop on the 26th.
Will we?
Yep.
19 plus 7, 26. All right. 3 or 4 days. If you want to check this out, it is $25 in US dollars. If you want to get in on this, there is some shipping, but I think it's being charged after the fact. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
So I will say, in terms of stretch goals, some of the more creative stretch goals I have seen. So, for instance, there is one of the stretch goals is if you record and post a video of yourself arguing with a friend about game mechanisms, the reward is 5 extra mechanisms cards. If you pick your favorite mechanism and record and post a video of you singing a song about that, you can unlock that. That just takes 5 people doing it. If you record and post a video of you reading the complete rules of Monopoly, if 10 people do that, that'll unlock upgraded box thickness. And my favorite one was, let me find this one. There was a stretch goal for complaining. If you complain, put enough complaints in the Kickstarter comments, reasonable or unreasonable, that unlocked a stretch goal as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been interesting to see this one. I don't know how the game plays. It isn't one that necessarily grabbed me even as a board gamer. It looks like it's going to be well produced. It's going to have a game trace. It's going to have everything gamers would crave. But this just hasn't really caught on, which is a shame because, again, the page has a lot of cool interactivity. It might be something that board gamers would really find engaging. But I think the trick with Kickstarter is, unless it is either a $10 or $15 game or a big over-the-top deluxe kind of game, it's going to be hard finding your market for it. And I think this is a pretty good example of it. Daniel Zayas knows what he's up to on Kickstarter, and to have this thing be as slow as it is, it's a shame because I think there's some interesting things going on with this campaign and with this game, but it may not end up funding at this rate.
And so it's interesting because Daniel himself is doing this. So he worked in the past for Eagle Griffin Games, and he as marketing guy, and then he is currently working for Longpack Games. But it's himself that's put this up on Kickstarter. I think it's funny at the top of the page. It says it 100% funded times 0.33.
Yep.
In only 98 hours, 14 minutes, and 24 seconds.
Yeah. There's a lot of really charming things about this page, and if you read the comments section, there's a lot of people just with hilarious, over-the-top comments, which for any Kickstarter creator who's ever worked on a campaign knows come up all the time. We had someone ask us today if they wanted to buy the game mat for a game that I won't name here, but they didn't want to get the game board. They wanted to try and save money, so they wanted to order the game without the game board, but with the game mat to see if we could give them a discount on that.
Okay.
And my response to that was, that is going to be a nightmare. The idea you're proposing is a logistical nightmare. No, we are not doing that. Any case. So, yeah. A lot of meta things, a lot of... Yeah, I know, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, a lot of meta things going on. But hey, you got a couple really cool people bringing this project up. Give it a look. It's certainly worth at least a look if you want to give it that
so.
in the final few days. Yeah, that's Mechanism, Sean.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our Kickstarter, and that's going to do it for our look at the news.
Sean, when I get a handful of Berkey jerky, I love just sitting back and enjoying life at the old Topper. Boy, I remember those days at the Topper, just sitting back, eating nothing but jerky and Berkey Spice, Happy Mouth Spice. I don't know, I'm plugging a lot of Berkey stuff here, Sean.
Well, Alex, I don't know that we should be talking about Berkey Spice or Berkey's Jerky because they are not technically sponsors of the Dukes of Dice. only Game Toppers LLC. So I'm a little hesitant here to talk about anything else Berkey related.
Let me consult with my attorney.
Oh, wait, that's me. Yeah, that's fine. But Alex, let's do talk about a Game Topper. You are the proud owner of a Game Topper. You have one over at Monochromatic Wolf. What's the whole idea here with these Game Toppers?
Well, here's the thing. If you like upgrading your table experience, if you like playing on a nice surface, you want to really have that game sparkle when you have that game night, there's not going to be much of a better bet for your money than a Game Topper. You can pack it up when you need it to go. You can set it out when it's time to play. It's easily customizable with a bunch of different mats, cup holders, and the like. If you are in the market for a game table but don't want to overspend, you're not going to do much better than a Game Topper.
So go check out Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com and hit up Berkey at the next con you see for some jerky or some Happy Mouth.
Tell them it's on the Dukes.
Wait, does that mean we're paying for it?
No.
Wait, no. Don't tell them it's on the Dukes.
I mean, maybe.
No.
That's Game Toppers. GameToppersLLC.com. Sean, for many years, a great debate has been held about a great river. Is it Tigris or is it Tigris? Sean, which one is it?
It's Tigris. There's no debate. You just can't pronounce things.
No, it might be. It might be something else. Well, Sean, no matter what you call that magnificent river, Tigris or Tigris, there's a game that celebrates it. It's Trade on the Tigris from Tasty Minstrel Games, designed by Jeff Engelstein and Ryan Sturm. This game encourages you to be the best trader in a civilization in the cradle of civilization. Will you be a dictator, or will you be more democratic in how you approach things? Will you try and scam other people through trades, or will you pull off the perfect set by cooperating with your neighbors? Who knows? You'll find out if you pick up Trade on the Tigris.
Go check out Trade on the Tigris and all of TMG's other awesome titles at playtmg.com. So Alex, I've decided that you can be the new boss, as long as you take care of all of us. You can take care of all of us?
I mean, I gotta get my beak wet. But yeah, sure, I'll take care of you.
You can get your beak wet, since you're a critter of some sort anyway.
I'm a pelican. I'm a beautiful pelican.
But Alex, just make sure, boss, that we all get our beaks wet.
Everyone knows Boss Pelican takes care of his own.
Because if you don't, Boss Pelican Alex, we may replace you with someone a little bit more amenable to all of our individual interests.
No one replaces Pelican Boss Alex.
If you like this little teleplay, perhaps you should check out Good Critters from Arcane Wonders. Good Critters is a game for 4 to 8 criminal critters pulling off heists and fighting over the loot. Whoever's chosen as boss can distribute the loot however they like, but it's the crew that has the final say. If the crew doesn't like the split, they might just tell the boss to take a hike and put some other critter in charge. In the end, the critter collects the most valuable stash of loot is the winner. So Alex, this will be available for purchase in November of 2018.
That's good, critters, and if you want to find out more about Arcane Wonders' other titles, including the Dice Tower Essentials line, you can go to arcanewonders.com. This week we are taking a vacation. A nice winter vacation to a tropical getaway paradise filled with a lot of treacherous things. But is Fireball Island the kind of place you want to take a visit to? Or does Vul-Kar want to just drive you away? We're talking Fireball Island.
Fireball Island, The Curse of Vul-Kar, is published by Restoration Games. And if you're familiar with Restoration Games, they are a company that takes older games and gives them a bit of a polish, updates them for the modern gamer. The original Fireball Island was designed in 1986 by Chuck Kennedy and Bruce Lund, and since Restoration got its hands on it with a little help from Rob Davio, J.R. Honeycutt, and Justin Jacobson, they put together the final product here of Fireball Island, The Curse of Vul-Kar.
Can I just jump in for a second? The proper way to say that name is J.R. Honeycutt?
Perfect. Good job. Anyway, Alex, so originally Fireball Island was kind of a kid's game. You are an adventurer on this island trying to plunder treasure from the island, all while these fireballs are coming out of this demon head thing, Vul-Kar trying to knock you down and keep you from stealing his stuff, so to speak. So this updates that, and it does a lot of things different than the original. I'd never played the original. I think I remember seeing commercials for it, but I didn't play it. I don't think I had any friends that owned it. I think I might have been just 86. So I was 5 when this came out. So yeah, I was probably a little bit too young to have played this. Maybe I didn't see commercials. I don't know. Maybe I'm just remembering things. You ever create your own memories?
Sometimes.
Yeah, where you think you remember something. Anyway, so in Fireball Island, you are trying to score points. In Fireball Island, The Curse of Vul-Kar, the current game, you're trying to score points by running around this vacuum-formed plastic island that's painted very well, looks really cool, and it has all these different paths that diverge, that go up in elevation, down in elevation. You're going up ladders, across bridges, and there are these different tokens. There are 3 different types of treasure throughout the island. You get more points if you collect multiples of the same, although they kind of cap off at a certain value. In addition, there's also the heart. Was it the heart of Vul-Kar? Is that the red crystal?
Yes.
That's right up by Vul-Kar at the top, which is worth 7 points if you have it at the end of the game. However, if you run by someone with the Heart of Vul-Kar, you can steal it from them, which is pretty interesting. And one of the things that I know that Restoration wanted to do here is give players a little bit more agency. In the original game, there wasn't a whole lot of agency. You just kind of randomly move, and the marbles would come out, and whatever happens, happens. Here, they've updated it and given players, like I said, more agency. Basically, you're going to have a hand of 2 cards, and you're going to play one of them and then draw back up. Now, movement is on the card. So first you'll move. Usually it's between 4 and 12 spaces, and you have to go in the same direction. And as you pass things, you can do things. You can collect one of the jewels or whatever, the treasures from a slab. There's also the snapshot places, which there are 3 different colors of snapshots, and there's 6 or 8 different subject matters, I guess. And you're trying to collect a set of 3 colors, basically. And you'll move around, and then after you move, the card will instruct you to do something else, or it might give you some special ability as you're moving. So for example, you can play the card that lets you move only 4 spaces, which is the slowest. However, anytime you pass a slab of treasures, you're able to take all the treasures on that slab. So some slabs have 1, some have 2. Are there any that have 3? I can't remember if there are any that have 3. I don't think so. I think 2 is just the max, but I'd have to double check. So you can get more treasures that way, but you're just not moving as far. There's one that lets you move 12, but you can't pick up any treasures, although you could still take snapshots of some of the places around the island. But that definitely lets you move around. But then there's all others that will let you rotate things on the island. So you can rotate two things. You can rotate palm trees and you can rotate Vul-Kar himself. The palm trees have these little petals that can obstruct marble movement or open up marble movement depending on how you rotate it. Additionally, Vul-Kar has kind of three outlets from him. So you put a marble in Vul-Kar, it has one hole at the top, and it's going to come out one of those three. And there are the different channels that you're walking around on, so you can rotate, so kind of point him away from your character or point him at other players' characters. And eventually, someone's going to play the Cataclysm cards, which is what let you pick up all of the red marbles that are in the what is it called? The chasm? No, the crag? What's it called? I can't think of what it's called.
The aggro crag.
The aggro crag, sure.
It's not called that.
Pick them up, throw the marbles in, and if you knock over someone, they have to give you one of their treasures. Ooh. Plus, knocking them over can move them somewhere else on the map. I mean, it can move them down, it can move them into a river, in which case they kind of get washed down to a certain area. It's pretty interesting. Eventually, once 3 Cataclysms get played, the deck gets shuffled, more of these red marbles are added to the crag. What's it called? This is driving me crazy.
The Scar, I think?
The Scar, there we go. Good job, Alex. Johnny on the spot with game names. And additionally, there are these orange embers, these orange marbles that are kind of positioned around the island, and sometimes you can, a card will let you flick them, so you could flick them at someone and try and knock them over. Also, just through the course, like let's say I play a Cataclysm and I drop the marbles, the red marbles, just the vibrations themselves might knock people over, or the vibrations themselves might knock over orange marbles and knock all these chain reactions happen. Eventually, either when there are 4 marbles in the Scar or when someone has collected the 3 different colored snapshots, the helicopter returns to the island and people can now rush back to the helicopter. If you're there first, you get your first choice of treasure, either the lucky penny that's worth 6 points or anything else that has kind of been dropped, other treasures that may have been dropped. You add up all your points at the end of the game, and whoever has the most points is the winner, the best explorer of Fireball Island, the Curse of Vul-Kar. Before we go into too much, I will point out that Restoration Games did send me a review copy, so just want that full disclosure up front. So Alex, what are your initial thoughts on Fireball Island, Curse of Vul-Kar?
And let me also add that J.R. Honeycutt, excuse me, let me say that again, J.R. Honeycutt, I consider to be a friend. I also consider Suzanne Sheldon to be a friend. I also consider Justin Jacobson to be a friend. I've had Rob Davio on for an interview. So the ducal ties to Restoration Games are very tight indeed. So that would be another bit of full disclosure. And JR also happened to drop off a copy with all the expansions at the Monochromatic Wolf headquarters. It has been set up on a table for the last number of weeks. So I don't know if that was technically a review copy or not, but I did get a free copy of this at the very least. So let's start there, Sean. Let's also go into, I am usually kind of the mindset that when you go into a split rating for a game, I kind of poo-poo that a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the split rating. But I'm going to have a hard time not giving this one a split rating when all is said and done in thinking about this. Because the nature of this is this more of a game or is this more of a toy in a sense, right?
Okay.
Is this a toy with a game to it, or is this a game that has a high toy factor? We'll talk a little bit more about where I fall on this and what it means. But I will say this. For what I think this game is setting out to do, I think it knocks out of the park for what it's trying to do. Now, does it make it a great game for a hobby player? I think that's a different question. So we'll talk this one out a little bit more, Sean. What about you? What do you think?
So I've really enjoyed it. I I totally understand what you're saying, and I would come down on it's a game. It's a good game with a high toy factor, for sure. Now that doesn't mean that Chewie doesn't like just having it set up and just dropping marbles and knocking things over, because plenty of that's happened. So she has definitely used it as a toy, which is very nerve-wracking for me, Alex, because I'm constantly worried she's going to lose marbles. And so I can't just let her play with it. I have to watch her like a hawk. Watch her like a hawk when she plays with it. But anyway, so there are certain types of games that I would put this in a similar category. Camel Up and Colt Express.
Oh, interesting.
And both games I think are fantastic. Those are games where both of them they're a little chaotic, and I like the chaos of them. And so this is a game that I like the chaos, because there is definitely a chaotic aspect to this. There are certain games where I'm like, oh, this game is too much chaos, or adding extra players that's too much chaos, and you lose control. Strategy, tactics kind of go out the window because there's too much unpredictability, too much chaos. And in certain types of games, that's a problem. But in a game like Camel Up, in a game like Colt Express, I like it. We added the Ghost variant to Colt Express, which just adds more chaos to the game, right?
Yep.
So when a game does certain things, I'm okay with the chaos. And that's how I look at this game. So it's in that same category for me. What is interesting is talking about another restoration game, Downforce, which in some ways I compare it to Camel Up. There are some similarities and there are some differences. And while there is an amount of chaos in Downforce, I also see it as a more tactical game. And so I don't quite lump it in the same category, even though I make some comparisons to Camel Up in my mind. Does that make sense?
Okay. We can talk more about well, let me jump on that point now. I think the difference between something like Downforce and Fireball Island in terms of the chaos of it is in Fireball Island, you have two choices. You have one card in your hand and you have the other card in your hand. And in some situations in that game, there may not actually be a choice. They may be the same card.
Sure.
Whereas in Downforce, you have a whole hand of cards that goes down as you play it, but you've made those choices all along the way about what to play and when.
Right, and I'm saying Downforce is far less chaotic.
Sure, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Camel Up, though, has some amount of chaos, right? You don't know what's going to get rolled. You don't know where the camels are going to be. But you can certainly have moments of feeling clever in that game. Moments of feeling like, I set this up, I set this trap perfectly, or I made this bet a long time ago and it paid off. Some of it's absolutely random. There's no question about it. But there are definitely moments of, that was a smart thing I did, at least. With Fireball Island, I'm not sure I have those moments as much. So
okay, and that's fair. I mean, I think you can definitely try and plan out a route. I mean, you can look at, based on the distribution of the different treasures, you could say, oh, I think this route might be beneficial. Whether or not you're going in the same area as other people, yes, I agree with you. There's probably less of that in this game.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm not sure there needs to be for what this game's trying to do. So, yeah. In any case, let's dig into this one, Sean. Components and art. Oh, wait, rulebook. Forgot about the rulebook. Did you read the rulebook for this, Sean?
I sure did. And I think it does a great job. The game itself is pretty simple. It does a good job of covering a lot of corner cases. Because, this is a game where, well, what happens if my piece gets knocked over and it's in multiple spaces? What happens if it's touching this or that? What counts as being actually knocked over? So I think it handles that pretty well. I didn't have any significant rules issues. I didn't really have to look anything up. And in fact, the only rules issue I may have had was whether or not you get okay, so I should mention, when you get knocked over, you get to draw a souvenir card. And also you start the game with a souvenir card. And a souvenir card is some sort of ability or action that you can take kind of out of turn or as part of your turn or whatever. There's one that says that if you get knocked over, you don't have to give up your treasure. You play the card and say, you can't take my treasure. There was some question about whether or not you still get a souvenir card for getting knocked over. Ultimately, we ruled that you do, because there's still a disadvantage to being knocked over, potentially. You're moved down or whatever. But really, that's kind of a minor issue. And I think my reading of the rules, it kind of supplies that answer, but I may be wrong, too. But other than that, I think the rulebook was solid.
Yeah, I think the one thing you want from a rulebook in this kind of a game is to get out of the way, right, as best as it can. It's a simple game mechanically. You don't want it to confuse things if at all possible, while also clarifying where it needs to be. And I haven't read it myself. It sounds like it does just that. Yeah.
So, what about components art, Alex?
Well, this is a situation where this section actually outshines probably the gameplay section for me. Gameplay tends to be what we'll talk about most. This is probably no exception. But boy, oh boy, does this thing have some table presence, Sean. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
This is so it's a material that they're using that's effectively like a high quality insert kind of material. It's formed plastic, I think. I don't know if there's a more technical name for that. I'm not a manufacturing guy. I don't know, but that's what I would think of when I think about this game. It's stored in the box in a kind of a stacked way, and you can assemble the island. Doesn't take a ton to do. It looks great on the table. Looks absolutely great on the table. And there's kind of a satisfaction to building this complete island and getting it ready to go. But despite some of this, it all seems to work together pretty well, Sean. What did you find with this game board?
No, I think when you say table presence, you're absolutely right. I mean, the island is huge. I don't have the exact dimensions in front of me, but I mean, I'm thinking like 2 feet by 1 foot, and it's probably a good 6-8 inches high. Probably taller with Vul-Kar on it, and it just looks cool, right? Like the way that they did this, the way that the paint, because there's green areas, then there's the pathways, and there's lava. I think the production of the island itself is really incredible. I think it's really solid. You have little player pieces, which are just, fairly, they're serviceable sculpts. I don't think you really want anything more than what you have there. Good quality cardstock. The art on the cards, the art on the board game, or on the box cover, I think is really good. I think this is a fantastic production from Restoration Games, really and truly. Even Vul-Kar himself is really cool. And I think that what Restoration does really well is say, okay, this game was good for back then. What do we need to do to make it better and update it for a modern audience? And so like the addition of the palm trees, right? Giving you a little bit more control, being able to, I guess that's a little bit more gameplay, but the palm trees look cool. This is a fantastic production. The only quibble that I would have, and is just the box, right? It's not what we typically see in terms of the more sturdy, modern board game box. This is something, I don't know was there like a nostalgia piece to this or just the realities of the production? Because it's a huge box. Like it is a big, big box. And it's one of those like collapsible boxes where you kind of can like fold the top and fold the bottom and they would lay flat. I don't know. Have you dealt with the box?
So I have. Yeah, obviously we have the same box that just about everyone has. And
oh, you didn't get a special box, Alex?
No, it wasn't a special box. But I will tell you, just actually today, I believe. Yeah, just today, the Restoration folks sent out an update today, as of the recording of this episode, of course, talking about a couple of component-y things. One of them being the box, and I'll kind of read a quote from here. Quote. This is from Justin Jacobson from Restoration. Clearly, this did not land. We hear you. This was something we were split on in-house, but we decided to give it a try. No doubt in retrospect, this was the wrong decision. However, I'm seeing some language being thrown around, suggesting this was a con job or money grab or ascribing some sort of malicious intent. It absolutely was not. We did not think you all would have this negative reaction to it. If we had, we wouldn't have gone that route. Honestly, we're pretty devastated at the reception. It's also worth adding that the box is not flimsy or cheap. I have even seen a prediction that it won't last through Christmas. I understand that it might feel that way because of the pre-folds or the unprinted interior or its overall lightness. However, that's objectively incorrect. The box is corrugated cardboard, which is the type of cardboard used in shipping cartons themselves. It's favored precisely because it's lightweight but extremely sturdy. So there was some apology on that recently, but it's one I think that they know about and know that, at least in terms of what gamers would expect, it's not what you would typically prefer. It's not the kind of typical board game box that people tend to like. The other time I've experienced this kind of box was with the Coconuts box, Coconuts for Mayday Games, the Dexterity game. That had a similar kind of box. And I don't know if the Fireball Island box is of this same quality or not. It seems like it's a little sturdier, but that box did not do a good job lasting. It actually was pretty not great, the Coconuts one. Again, I don't know if that's going to be the case with this box specifically. It seems like it's sturdier. But again, anytime you see that kind of difference in a box, I think it tends to have gamers be at least a little bit worried about what might happen to it. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's a little bit of a downside of the production. But honestly, once it's set up on the table, I don't know what you really care about the box for anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not a huge... I mean, it's not going to affect my rating of the game and doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game. I mean, ultimately, it's going to... Well, I'll just let you know, it's going to stay in my collection. And I've got a spot on the top of one of the shelves because it doesn't quite fit into my normal Calyx shelves. But it's gonna be just fine. I'm not worried about the box.
And I will say this, too. There was one other small... So they mentioned that each game board you get is going to be technically unique, just because of the process used to form it. There's set dimples where pieces are supposed to go, but there's going to be little imperfections. Marbles are going to roll differently game to game. The only small thing we had is there's a spot where the snakes are supposed to go for one of the expansions.
Yes. So the fifth player expansion.
Yeah.
That has little snake marbles. Okay. I have one of those dimple problems.
It doesn't quite sit. It won't sit in that spot. It keeps rolling down. I don't know if yours is on the same part of the board as ours is. Any case. Yeah, we have that issue. It just won't quite sit. It won't stay there. There's not much we can do about it. Maybe there's some sort of jury-rig kind of solution we can do to fix it. I don't know. At the end of the day, one snake is not a big deal.
Yeah, I just didn't play with that one. Because it's, there's, 7 or 8 snakes, I think?
Yeah.
4, 5, 6. Yeah, somewhere in there. So yeah, we didn't play with it. But that little expansion adds a 5th player, which I unfortunately didn't play 5 players. I think that's where I want to play this game, though.
Yes.
If everyone's quick, not that it's a long game, but that adds these little snake marbles that are smaller than the other marbles. They roll easily, or they get knocked easily, which I think is part of the design. You could potentially poison players, which limit, or they have to play the top card of the deck instead of a card from their hand when they're poisoned. And then there's also this cool little foam giant boulder.
Yeah, giant boulder.
Super cool.
Yeah. Well, and then there's other expansions too. We haven't even talked about the Crouching Tiger Hidden Bees expansion, where you have this little tiger that you can flick onto the board, and if you knock someone over, you get 3 of their treasures. There's bees which get dumped down, and if they're touching your piece after they roll down, they're going to sting you, and that's not going to be so nice for you. So there's all sorts of stuff that comes with this game. We haven't even talked... Sean, did you get the separate board with your copy? Sean, did you get that separate board with your copy?
No, I did not.
So this is a whole other thing. It's a pirate ship that if you duck through a cave, you can pop out on this pirate ship. It has cannonballs, other kinds of treasure. You can dump the cannonballs, knock your pieces over. And again, it adds another little extra cool piece to this game. So there's a ton of expansions, a ton of content. And we were quibbling a bit about the box and maybe some of the how the marbles sit. But man, oh man, did they knock it out of the park with the card quality, with everything else with this game is top notch, really top notch.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. I think that we'll probably wind up spending more time on this section of the review rather than gameplay. And in my mind, that's not to suggest there's any problem with the gameplay. There's just not really a whole lot to say here. Like, in my mind, though, I've had a ton of fun with this. I think it's a great family game. And it feels like I could see playing this at like Extra Life at 2:00 in the morning. You know, everyone's a little bit tired. You just played some big, long, heavy game, and now you need to kind of be up, standing around the table, and just having crazy stuff happen.
Yeah, I mean, every time, and let's talk about gameplay. Let's just jump right in. Every time you're taking one of those marbles out of the scar or flicking a boulder or doing something that has a potential of sabotaging your opponent, there's a moment of, ooh, which way is it going to come out of Vul-Kar? Which path is it going to go down? Is it going to have enough force to knock them over? Is this going to go off the way I think it should or want to and mess someone up? And on the other side of that, you're nervous for your own piece. Hopefully you've set the trees up to where it might block your way, or you have enough shelter, or you're not stuck on a ladder or a bridge, which can get knocked over by the marbles. But I will tell you this, Sean, whenever I get knocked over by one of those things in this game, there is not a ton of frustration, right?
Yeah.
This is a take that game where if you're getting upset about it, you are 100% doing it wrong. 100% doing it wrong. And it's charming in that way. It's charming in that way of if something bad happens to me, I don't overwhelmingly care, but I'm kind of rooting for it to happen. I'm rooting for that chaos. I'm rooting for, in my game, I was rooting to end up sacrificing myself to Vul-Kar by dumping as many marbles as possible, because I already knew I wasn't going to win, but I didn't want to end up with any treasure at the end either. So if I was going to lose, I was going to go down in absolute flames. So from that standpoint, again, it succeeds at what it's trying to do. This is meant to be that sort of filler kind of experience, that fun experience. It's meant to be pure fun. And in a large part, I think it succeeds on that front. And especially as a family game, oh boy. I think Chewie is not too far off from being able to play this with you if she hasn't already, Sean.
Yeah, so we played it. So I played it with Raquel and Mariah while Chewie was taking a nap. So this particular time. And she woke up from her nap, and she was like, what is that? Like, she was like, holy cow. So she came over and she helped Raquel, and then she switched sides and helped Mariah, and then she switched sides and helped me. And we let her kind of put the marbles into Vul-Kar. We were putting it away, and she was really sad. She's like, oh no, I want to keep playing. I'm like, all right, Chewie, tomorrow you and me, we'll just play this by ourselves. And we played kind of a modified game. Like, basically I just had her, we just flipped cards from the deck and moved the pieces. And I said, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that. And she did a pretty decent job. She's not really there. She's 4.5. She can't read. Kids today, right? So yeah, but I think that this is something that she's going to really want to play as she gets older. I think it's going to be a year or two, possibly. But I think this is something that she's going to really enjoy. And she has really enjoyed. And even after we played it with me, Raquel, and Mariah, and even after Chewie and I played it, she just kind of wanted to just play with the marbles and set the dudes up and watch them get knocked down. So yeah, I mean, it's really fun. And I think if you have family, especially with younger kids or, youngish kids, I think they'll get a lot of enjoyment out of this. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Now, here's the question, Sean. Does it have enough depth for you to enjoy it on a gamerly front? Now, that may be a silly question. I don't know. Is this one where you don't feel the need for that? Because I know with a lot of games, feeling clever and that heavier side of things has been a pretty big draw for you. Mm-hmm. Does this do what it needs to do on that level for you?
So here's the thing. When you talked earlier about Camel Up, there are moments when you feel clever. I never feel clever in Camel Up or Colt Express. I just feel like, oh, good, it happened to work out that way, right? Because it is, if you're playing roulette and you bet on the correct number or the correct field of numbers or whatever, like, I never feel clever. Like, it just happened to work out that way, So I think there's enough depth here. I'm gonna want to play this the same amount that I'm gonna want to play Camel Up or Colt Express, which is to say that no, this isn't my preferred style of game. No, this isn't a game that I'm gonna think to play often, but it's a game that I'm gonna play in a not in the right situation, because that has a very distinct ducal score meaning, but certainly when I'm, okay, we have like tabletop day, And I have, in the past, I've had like friends from my old job that would come by and we play a game like Cash and Guns. We play a game like Camel Up. I would absolutely play that in this situation. Raquel and Mariah enjoyed it quite a bit. And if Chewy wants to help out, I mean, we'll play it in that type of situation. But no, it's not my current style of GMT war game or something like that.
What would you rather play if you had the situation come up where it would be appropriate for it? Would you rather play Camel Up, Colt Express, or this?
I think I would rather play...
Because if I'm ranking those in order, I would probably rank it Colt Express, Camel Up, and then this, of those three. Not to say, and we'll talk about final thoughts here in not too long, not to say that that's a bad sign by any means, but I found myself more drawn to the gameplay of something like Colt Express, where it does feel chaotic and oh boy, here we go, and let's see how this plays out. And even though it's harder to get into and doesn't quite have the same table presence, I find myself enjoying the chaotic nature of what's Ghost going to do that I don't have necessarily with this. And with Camel Up, how the goofy stacking of the camels and your bets going horribly sideways in a hurry is also a ton of fun. I have some moments like that in this game, some moments of tension and am I going to get this treasure at the right time? But I also have moments of hey, I got two of the same card at the same time in my hand, and that's kind of annoying. What do I do about that? So I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I necessarily rank it highly in comparison to some of those other kind of just pure goofy fun games, at least for me.
So I think what this game has over Camel Up and Colt Express is I think it's a much easier game to teach.
No doubt. I would agree with that 100%.
And I don't think it's giving up much in terms of depth because of that, or despite that. So, because like I think about it, right? I think of like some of those types of games, and especially with like newer gamers or non-gamers, and sometimes you're explaining what you think is this dead simple game, and their eyes kind of glaze over. I mean, I've seen people's eyes glaze over in Camel Up, where you just explain, and you're like, okay, cool, let's play, and they're just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or even with Colt Express, because you have the programming. Here, I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue. And like I said, I don't think I'm necessarily sacrificing any of my own enjoyment or depth as a result. So I would definitely play. I think I prefer Camel Up over Colt Express, but I think because it's easier to teach, I'd probably play this over Camel Up.
Interesting.
I don't know about the new Camel Up that has. I mean, it's new art and it looks really good. And apparently there's like a mini expansion they include in the base game now. But I think so. I think that the table presence on this is incredible. I'm not going to play Camel Up with the family. I'm not going to play Colt Express with the family necessarily. Chewy is far away from Colt Express. She's probably far away from Camel Up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, in terms of the can I play this with people test, it checks off a lot of boxes, right? You can play this with more people than you can play either of those two other games.
Right.
And I will say this, that accessibility means a ton. It means an absolute ton. And it's going to mean that a lot more families are going to be enjoying this for many more years to come because it's just going to be easier to get into. It plays with a wider range of ages. It can be enjoyed. It can certainly be enjoyed by a group of typical gamer guys and gals at their weekly game night at a friendly local game store. And it can also be enjoyed by a family of four. And I think on that front, I love that in the game. I love that it has that potential to be that. For my personal tastes, it doesn't quite hit that same bar that those other two games hit in terms of just me enjoying it as a game. And again, I don't think it's trying to. I don't think it needs to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's pretty good on that front. So let's talk theme, Sean. I think this game is dripping with theme.
Yes. No, absolutely. You are an explorer, Indiana Jones type, exploring this island, trying to avoid all the pitfalls and dangers to get fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
Well, and when you grab the heart of Vul-Kar, you feel the danger of that, right? You feel the danger of, oh, this island is going to get really angry. I just took this from it.
Right.
You also have this kind of fun moment of running around the island trying to get tourist photographs, which adds kind of a cool fun factor. You're exploring, but you're also taking some time to enjoy the sights before you have to run for your life for the helicopter.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm just imagining on the run, especially as the island is really getting angry, just like holding your camera out in your left hand and just running by and, okay, here we go. Having so much fun here. Oh, my God.
I imagine they're all selfies, though.
Okay, nice.
So there should be an expansion that like you can get like the selfie stick souvenir.
I thought it might be in there.
Is there one?
Maybe. I might be making that up.
Maybe not the one I have, the connection I have. Anyway, so real quick, we did have one person on the guild that commented, by the time this came out, it's been fulfilling for the last week or so. Or rather, by the time we're recording, it's been fulfilling for the last week or so. So Baker Mitchell says, I have young children, 9 and 6, and we play lots of games together. As soon as I backed Fireball Island, I showed them the video, and they have been stoked ever since. Finally, it arrived last week, and they love it. While the gameplay is not complex nor weighty, it's not supposed to be. The toy factor is super high. My 6-year-old will just play with it. I suspect that is what many of us did as kids. The gameplay is very good for what it's supposed to be. A fun, lighthearted, chaotic, good time. I'm very happy with the product. Card quality is great, minis are subpar but work well, marbles are nicely done, but I must say the island is not what I imagined. I kept thinking it would be some solid, super sturdy, thick plastic playset, but that is not realistic. I cannot imagine the production and development cost. Although I was initially disappointed with the island, it does not detract from the enjoyment of the game. Because my family enjoys it so much, I would give Fireball Island a ducal solid 4+ out of 6.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, for what you get in there, for the table presence, the components, the what you have in there, I think it absolutely lives up to its billing in terms of value. I had absolutely no issues with the value in this game. You get a ton in that box.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Alex, why don't you lead us off with your final thoughts?
Sure. So I mentioned at the start of the start of this review, that a split rating might be better warranted here. And in terms of a game, so let's start here. We review all games of the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. 1 being terrible, terrible, very bad, god awful, get this away from me. 6 being, oh my goodness, amazing, contender for the top 10. And I think as far as a family game goes, an accessible family game goes with hobby ties, by itself, it would probably be a 6 on a split rating, a 5 or a 6 at least. But in terms of my personal tastes, I had fun playing this, but I didn't have as much fun playing this as, say, again, we make the comparisons, a Camel Up, another kind of one that comes to mind. Again, it's completely different mechanically, but even something like Tales of Arabian Nights, which defies the description of a game for some. But for me, I find that being, again, just kind of throw your coins in the slot machine and see what comes out, and hopefully you get an engaging story along the way. And something like this, this is just like a little half step lower than that. Now, that being said, it's something I want to have in the collection and want to have access to, because you can play it with so many people, and people new to the hobby are going to see this on the table. Even people not interested in the hobby are going to see this on the table and say, what on earth is that? And when you tell them it's a game and you get a chance to play, it brings back all sorts of memories. I never played this growing up. I never played Fireball Island, but I played Mousetrap. I remember the trying to build the little chain reactions of something like Mousetrap and being delighted by something like that, being delighted by the toy factor of it. The toy factor of this, more than even the game itself, has this thing at a solid 4. A good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. And again, take that score for what it is. It absolutely does what it sets out to do. If you're looking at this as a family game, I think this is a must-buy, a must-fit. It's a perfect gift for under the Christmas tree. For the true gamer's gamer, I'd say it's worth having around for some of the situations Sean mentioned, but I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying great. I'd say good.
So I'm struggling here, Alex. I'm struggling between a 4 and a 5.
Okay.
A 4 is a good game worth playing just all the time, belongs in the Duchy, like you gave it. 5 is a great game, will rarely turn down a play of it. So I think I was ready to give it a 4. And then I thought, well, you know what? I've given Camel Up and Colt Express both. I've given them 5s. So I was like, so does that mean that I would probably, in my mind, at least need to lower them from 5s to 4s? And then I was thinking about it, and I'm just like, man, yes, it's true that, I'm going to get up early Sunday morning to go play Combat Commander with Rory or go play Passive Glory. I'm not going to get up early Sunday morning to go play this game, right? Like that's not what it's there for me, right? And so I think, but at the same time, I think of all of the occasions that I have played Camel Up since we've reviewed it years ago. It's been probably 2 or 3 years since we reviewed Camel Up, and I bring it out a lot. And yes, it's in a particular situation, typically with either a larger group or newer gamers, and I feel like I'm going to pull this out more than that. So I think that there are reasons that it's a 4. Because it's not worth playing all the time. It's not something I'm going to schedule. It's not an appointment style game. I want to give it a 5, but I think I'm going to have to drop that and Camel Up and Colt Express. I think I'm going to have to drop them all to a 4. A good game, worth playing just all the time, belongs to the Duchy. But I think of that style of game, I think it could be a go-to for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a decent enough score for a go-to, especially given your tastes, which have trended heavier and heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the Duke's review of Fireball Island. Sean and I both give it a 4. Sean maybe a little higher on this one than me.
Yeah.
But I will say, as a family game, it is a home run, an absolute home run. So that's Fireball Island, a pair of 4s.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
Finally, on this episode of the Dukes of Dice, this already surprisingly long episode of the Dukes of Dice, we have a Dukes of Dice Double Take from episode 164, Philly Cheesequake. I was not present for the review of this, Sean, but Raquel was. You had a nice couples episode there. You gave this one a 5 at the time. You said this is more intuitive than the Gallerist for you, and you were wondering whether this was your favorite Lacerda or not. Raquel gave this one a 5 as well, said it could move up to a 6, but that it was just a little too hard to get to the table to quite make the cut at that point. Sean, have you played this game since?
I have. In fact, I discussed this with Raquel earlier. She has not played it since, though I have. It stays at a 5 for both of us. And this is my favorite Lacerda. I'm a big fan of his. He does some really meaty Euros that I think do a great job with theme. And I think, because I think you've only played Kanban?
No, I've played the Gallerist.
Oh, you played the Gallerist. We reviewed the Gallerist, yeah.
Yeah, and I played Kanban too.
Yeah, I mean, he does a really great job, I think, integrating theme with these really complex Euro mechanics. And man, this game it's just fantastic. So for some background, basically you are trying to rebuild the city of Lisboa after, I think it's Renaissance era, after this earthquake that destroyed a bunch of the buildings, caused floods, fire, all sorts of stuff. And so you're trying to clear the rubble, rebuild, and it's interesting hand management. There's some resources, well, not really resources, but there's just all these moving pieces that you have to work in unison. And it's really thinky. It's really good. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful looking game. And, yeah, it's just really solid. So a 5 is, by the way, a great game. Will rarely turn down a play of it. When, I've been kind of poo-pooing a lot of like the medium weight Euros. This is not, I mean, these Lacerda games, man, they're good. They're tough. They're thinky. You feel drained afterwards, but for whatever reason, I enjoy that.
All right, fair enough. I've also played from Vital Lacerda, Vinos, and that is my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
That is my favorite of the Lacerda games, personally.
The new Vinos, the
updated Vinos. I have not played the old Vinos. I played the new Vinos, and I enjoyed that one actually a decent amount. I like the Gallerist too for what it was, but yeah, I think Vinos is my favorite Lacerda.
Yeah.
Some of the guild thoughts on this one. Some more guild thoughts on this one. Matthew S. says, Lisboa is in close competition with Kanban for my favorite Lacerda game. The Gallerist, by contrast, is a distant third. I haven't played the others. While the design isn't quite as clean as Kanban, Lisboa has two big things going for it. You can have much more asymmetric gameplay because of the clergy tiles and player board revealed bonuses, and the game feels like it ends at the right time, whereas Kanban always feels like it ends just a bit too soon. A clear 6 for me.
Wow. And then BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, so far I have 2 complete plays and 2 half plays. I consider this one of the jewels of my collection. I love the beautiful O'Toole art, love the thematic mechanisms, love the way you can push and pull gears, but don't love the math inherent in figuring out how much it costs to build those initial stores. This is a top 10 game of that year for me and a strong 5. I'll play anytime someone asks, unless it's 1:30 a.m. and Alex needs a ride back to his hotel.
Yeah, well...
Did you keep him from playing a game of Lisboa?
No, I didn't keep him from playing a game of Lisboa. We were trying to play Western Legends, and it wasn't in the library. We couldn't get a spot at a table, so we just played a bunch of just one. But the last shuttle for me back to my hotel, because we weren't staying at the Hyatt Regency, ended at 1 a.m., so I had to get a ride back. But I did not stop him from playing Lisboa.
Sounds like it.
That is not accurate, Dr. Gumbo. Shame on you, Dr. Gumbo. Shame, shame, shame. All right, Kyle Kelly says, Lisboa is one of my favorite games of all time and is, what I believe, Lacerda's best design. He has an incredible way of weaving theme into very deep Euros. It also doesn't hurt that the theme is unique, historical, and generally positive, something I think we need in today's climate. I gave it a 6 on the Ducal scale, so the Duchy really a big fan of this game. Think I need to try this one, Sean? Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think you would like it, and I don't think you'd like it more than Vinos or Kanban, but I think you would like it. And so maybe you don't, because it's not your style of game. And if there are other Lacerda games that I think you'd like better, maybe, I don't know. I think it's awesome. It's my favorite.
Fair enough. Well, very good. That's the Duke's double take of Lisboa. Sean and Raquel started at a 5, and they end up right there at a 5. That'll just about do it for the Dukes of Dice, but first, the honorable mention section, the best of the rest. And as you mentioned, Sean, this was a lot of really good names. Normally when we get ready to start recording, we have about 7, maybe 8 that we've handpicked as ones to be possible top 6 contenders, and it's usually easy to get the 6. Not so much this time, Sean.
Yeah, so started off, Brian Smith suggested, why did it have to be snakes? Which doesn't really fit in with everything. It doesn't tie everything together that we usually look for in a name, but that's a reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is just a fantastic movie, Alex. So I felt like, we got to make an honorable mention.
And it's a movie I've seen.
Oh, bonus points.
Bonus points. The name father, Steve O'Rourke, my former arch-nemesis and rival, came with the name The Hotness, referencing the hotness at BGG, referencing the fire in Lisboa, and referencing, of course, the hotness of Vul-Kar's Wrath in Fireball Island.
And then Michael Farnbrook suggested the restoration of Lisboa, which that's what you're doing in Lisboa. You're restoring it, but also we're talking about a restoration game this episode.
Yeah, makes total sense. Jesse Black with Earthquakes and Vicious Snakes. Earthquake referencing Lisboa, Vicious Snakes referencing the snakes that you might find on the island of Fireball Island. The island of Fireball I was about to say, but yeah, didn't make as much sense.
And then finally, John Cano suggested Alex versus the Volcano, since you were talking about BGG Con. Did you ever see Joe versus the Volcano, Alex?
Oh, no.
Was that the first Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movie? Did that come before Sleepless in Seattle? I know it came before You Got Mail.
Of those 3 movies you've just named, I have seen exactly 0.
Really?
Yep, 0.
All right.
We're almost pushing 2 hours here, Sean. There are people yelling at us to wrap it up.
Okay, we'll wrap it up. Well, thanks again, everyone, for all your contributions over in the Guild. This has been episode 189, Inflamado. Thanks again to Jason Brown for that episode title. We will see you next time. Until then, this is Sean.
And Smithison, the constantly immovable. And also Alex.
No shenanigans, huh, Alex? And yuki later, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to The Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on November 20th and 21st, 2018. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and Game Toppers, LLC. You can check out all of TMG's awesome titles at PlayTMG.com. Learn more about Arcane Wonders' fine games at ArcaneWonders.com. And find out how you can enjoy a Game Topper of your very own at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.